2, 1, and we are live. This is The Great Awakening. I'm John Mulrooney. That's Phil Iazetter. And this handsome-looking guy over here is, well, listen, I don't want to give it away because stand by one.
John, everybody knows who he is. Come on.
Shut up. Be quiet, man. He's on a tiny little screen, man. Let me play some of his shit. Here we go. All righty.
Constitution is. If you haven't read it, I hope you feel as stupid as I felt last year when I started this show and I hadn't read it yet. 4 pages. That's the whole thing. That's our whole country based on 4 pages, which is pretty amazing, the Constitution. But the thing is, it worked. Well, it worked, and now this country's about to break up. People see this country as either, the last best hope, hard work and fair play, or exploitation and greed, depending on, whatever, however you like to see things. And like I said, we're going to break up. This country's going to get divorced. Red states, blue states. A house divided cannot stand. And you know who said that? Kris Jenner. That's correct.
Colin Quinn, ladies and gentlemen. Colin Quinn.
Hey.
Himself it is. It was, you're in New York?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, dude. It was what it was last week. It was fun seeing you. It was great working at the Wolfhound. It was
great because we're talking about how many gigs, but it just goes to show unless you've done a lot of those gigs where you walk in, it's packed, there's a bar, then you can't really do those gigs.
Right, correct. That was between me and you. What do we got? Dude, is it possible 80 years of experience between the two of us? Nearly.
I would say, yeah. I mean, I've been doing it 41, yeah.
45, I've been doing it.
Yeah.
And I started in 78. So between the two of us, we had nearly 100 years of experience taking down the Irish Wolfhound in Astoria, Queens. I'm just curious because I have, dude.
I don't want to get off on a bad foot, but I was 1978 to today, 45.
What did I say? 78, what is it, 47?
Yeah.
47. Holy shit. Holy shit, dude. That's how, oh my God. All right. So it was 1980 then. Wow. 40. Yeah. It's funny. I always thought, my memory is playing tricks on me. I always thought I started in 1980 and it wasn't until recently someone came up to me and said, hey, I have the first autograph you ever gave to anyone to my mom. And I said, what? And It was in Pip's September of 1978 in my handwriting. And I went, okay, I can't deny that. I mean, there's the evidence. And he took a picture of it and sent it to me because looking back, I was like, no, I started in 1980 because that's the year that I crossed paths with Jenny and we became good friends.
Oh my God. Yeah. You and Jenny were great friends.
Yeah.
Before I ever saw you, Jenny, before I got to see you do stand-up, in those days, you couldn't watch people on YouTube. Either you saw them live, you didn't see them. Before I ever saw you, Jenny talked about you, just raving, talking about this one night when you worked together, and there was so much tension in the room, and just describing your energy, and I was like, it's great. It was a great description what he did of you to me. Me and him sitting in a car, just sitting there in a driveway for like an hour, and I remember him talking about you.
We used to. I had the unenviable reputation of doing impressions of comedians that nobody would ever know, which was somewhat true. But I used to do the pitch perfect Richard Jenny, and I used to argue all the time with the hell was his name, Craig Shoemaker, who thought he did a better Rich Jenny, and I said, no, you don't do a better Rich Jenny. But that being said, I must say that nobody that I know does a better Colin Quinn than this guy.
Oh, yes, Jay Moore.
Stand by one.
What's the matter? I need Jay Moore's on the line, but I can't.
Oh my God, Jay Moore! Don't go anywhere. Can you use the keyboard?
No.
Scroll up, scroll. Use the arrows on the keyboard.
How do we get him on the air without this?
What happened to the mouse? Switch to producer. Yes, switch to me.
All right,
oh, he was talking to me. What happened?
My friend Jay, I want to defend how short I am.
Another
You boys you're good. But a few days in a row, you've been tagging good old Al.
Yeah.
Al is an absentee landlord, Jimmy.
But
Hold on.
You yell out random quotes and go,
There
okay,
he
quick,
is.
what movie? And then when they're wrong, go, I'm smarter than you. I knew what I was saying. Yo, you should let Tracy Morgan talk to Jimmy. I got schizophrenia. I just got my belly off in preschool. In a doo-doo diaper pamper.
Dude, that is the best Colin Quinn.
He does my breathing.
Yeah.
It's pitch perfect. If he was doing that to me over the phone, there is no way I would be able to tell it wasn't you. I mean, it is pitch perfect.
He does my nasal and my breathing. It's amazing. I have to say, even I can see it.
He does more than that. He does what you would say, which is really,
That's right. He does the references. Yeah.
he is channeling you.
Yeah,
when
he
you do it.
really is.
Now,
Yeah,
you hear it. So what do you, because I've never had anyone that came up and did like a dead on impression of me where I went, oh my God, that's amazing. But that is, nobody's even tried to touch a Colin Quinn impression. What's going through your mind when another great comic is able to do you that good?
I mean, no. I mean, people used to try to do me. They do me like, and
Right,
then
right.
he started doing that. And I was like, wow. It just goes to show when somebody does somebody well, it's another level. You know,
That was not a caricature in any way, shape, or form.
no, it was like you said, he channeled it.
He channels Colin Quinn.
References, all the stuff I like to. He just starts doing it.
now, Colin.
Yeah,
Colin, John's gonna make fun of me for even saying this because he's gonna say, I'm kissing up to you. But being able to do something well, Tough Crowd to me was one of those shows. It should still be on television. I mean, it was one of those. I mean, you talk about moments that you had, like the Greg Giraldo, Dennis Leary moment. I mean, that will live forever. What, like in your mind when you were living through that moment, what was going through your mind when those two were going at it?
I mean, I've always said this. Dennis, to his credit, I said, we were doing the thing. I go, we can cut that if you want, and he goes, no, leave it. It's good TV. Dennis said that. Wow. So even though a lot of people are like, oh, Dennis was wrong, he said, leave it. I was going to cut it if he didn't like it.
That's incredible. Because Giraldo was one of those guys that you had. He was a staple on the show. I mean, and it was such a tragedy when how he went, and it was awful. But as far as intelligence in comics, because I watched him as a fan for years,
Right.
Was he like the top of the food chain? Because I don't think there was a smarter comic. Maybe Carlin.
Well, Phil, you have to understand the mentality of comics. Because when you just said that, me and John were both thinking, where's intelligence? So I'll give you that, okay?
Dude,
Nobody lasts in comedy by thinking somebody else. There's no shrinking violence in this game.
Where you started out in the city, just like I did back in the day, right?
I started out in the city, and I mean, I went to Pips. One of my earliest gigs are really, if I was as interesting as my earliest shows, I'd be I'd be the king of all storytelling. You know what I mean? And one of my earliest gigs was at Pips, and I go in there, and it's a Wednesday afternoon. You had to go for audition night. It was Wednesday.
Wednesday night,
yeah. Comedy. Wednesday night was audition. So I go in. The MC was Alan Belmont on the weekend.
Oh my God, Alan Belmont! Wow.
So I go in.
For
the audition night, but it's the afternoon. So there's a sign on the outside. I don't know if I ever told you this story because I was just in Sheepshead Bay. We were talking over the phone, and there's a sign on the outside that says Nikki Tantulo won't be here tonight. But it's pasted on the outside by paper on the outside of Pips. So somebody must have pasted it, right? So then the owners came, they opened it up. So I go in, I get my audition number, little number, there's like 6 people audition. I go on, about 6 guys, Avenue X, back in the 84, Avenue X, all tatted up when nobody had tattoos, except, guys looking to start trouble. Shaved heads, I guess it was summer. They had the T-shirt. Boom, throw chairs. The show's outside. This show sucks. The show's outside. Nicky Tantulo is outside. So Seth Schultz was there. They step to him like, yeah, you. And then I stand next to him because I'm like, I'd like, as John knows, when you're starting comedy, you'd rather get your ass kicked and get a spot than not get, you know what I mean? So I'm with Seth because I'm thinking this guy's, I'm going to get in good with him even if I get a beating, and I'll get on. So I stand next to him and they're like, we'll put, just threatening us. They go outside. Their friend, Nicky Tantulo, had auditioned the Wednesday before and they didn't pass him. So he's got on the back of a flatbed truck doing stand-up comedy, doing his
dude, I remember that.
Right,
I remember he had a big oh my God, I remember that.
Right on Evans Avenue.
Flatbed truck. Oh my God.
Here's what I should have left comedy. When the audience like 15 people, half of them are scared and leave. The other half are standing around the truck now laughing at this psycho.
Dude, I can't believe that. Not only do I remember that story, Seth used to luxuriate in telling that story over and over.
He did? I was standing right next to him.
I didn't know you were there that night. Oh my God.
But he might not know either. But anyway, because I stood with him, he gave me a Friday night spot, but I didn't do well. And Alan Belmont was like, sorry, kid. I was new. I'd only done it like twice. So I wasn't ready for the Friday night spot. So he gave it to me because I stood with him, which was very cool. But I didn't do good. So then I was a couple of years before I worked there again. But I was there. He told that story all the time.
All the time he used to tell that story about the
guy
who
was there
up on the flatbed of the truck. And Alan Belmont, if you remember, Alan Belmont had a rod in his back, and he always he moved like this. And his big joke was, so I saw a sign on the side of a building. It said, if you're an alcoholic, call this number. I did. It was a liquor store.
I remember.
That was his one like joke. Yeah, his one joke.
That's the one joke I remember of his. But dude, that's great. I never knew Seth always told that story.
Seth loved that story.
Right next to him. He probably didn't know because I was just an open micer. So he's probably like some kid that he probably forgot that I was right there for the whole thing.
I'm gonna throw an old school Brooklyn name at you. Buttons Guarino. Do you remember this dude?
No.
Okay, his name, he used to put buttons on the overpass of every walkover in the Bell Parkway. He leaned over and sprayed buttons, and everyone knew it was Buttons Guarino. He was some gangster's kid.
Oh.
And he came to Pips one night. Remember how Marty and Seth were the brothers who ran the place. George owned it, drunk upstairs every night. Marty and Seth were downstairs. Marty usually looted out of his head, and Seth was a maniac. And I was standing there one night. Buttons Guarino came in, and he was looted up, and Marty was looted up, and he was standing there going, "What do you got, show going on?" So Marty was like, "Yeah, you can't come in. We're full." Whatever it was, it turned into a bit of a scuffle. And Seth, who loved Bruce Lee and always practices Bruce Lee stuff, he steps back and he plants his foot right into Buttons Guarino's face, and he was so hammered. All it did was snap his head back, and his face split open, and he looked at Seth, and he goes, "What'd you do that for?" And that was another one of those stories he used to love to retell over and over and over again. And P.S., about a year later, Buttons was maybe 20, 21 at the time. They whacked him in front of his house not far away off of somewhere in Bay Ridge.
Jeez.
But that was Pips. Where he used to say, where the lobsters meet the mobsters. That was his running gag.
Well, I did. You were friends with Ray Garvey, too. Ray Garvey was the owner after the Schultzes. So he's a guy, retired cop.
Retired. Three quarters, Colin.
Yeah. They booed him. And so but he owns his place. So he goes to me, "Hey, will you I'm doing a movie at Pips." I was like, "Oh, my God." And he goes, "Woody Allen will bring you on stage." So I go, "Sure he will, Ray." So, because Woody Allen would never do stand-up. They offered him $1 million to do like Atlantic City or something. Woody Allen would never do stand-up once he retired. He goes, "He's going to do stand-up and he'll bring you up." I go, "All right, Ray." A month later, I'm off to the side and Woody Allen's going at Pips. "Ladies and gentlemen, Colin Quinn."
Ray was one of these guys. Ray was a Brooklyn hustler. I don't know how he did it. He was able to.
Woody Allen. So we go there. So then we're Danny Aiello, Pat Cooper, the usual, people would show up.
Wow, yeah.
So first, Danny Aiello shows up, and he's got a Jaguar. So they go, the scene, your car service picks you up in the scene. He goes, wouldn't you rather have me pull up in my Jaguar? He had a new Jaguar. He wanted to show it off for this film that nobody's doing, but Woody Allen. So they go, okay, he pulls up in his Jaguar. They shoot him in the Jaguar. Pat Cooper pulls up in the car service, and he goes, what? They give him a Jaguar? And I'm coming in the car service like an asshole. And then we shoot. Woody Allen does the scenes, but Woody Allen's going to leave. He's only doing it for you can't believe you got him. So Pat Cooper comes in, and they shoot the Pat Cooper thing. So Pat riffs, just free associates. Genius. I mean, a brilliant.
He was great.
Riffing, the amazing, like a genius. And he's so funny. And now, so then Woody Allen's leaving. He was in the audience watching. They shoot him watching Pat. They go, okay, Pat, Woody's left. Now we're going to we'll turn the camera around. We're going to do you doing this. What?
Right.
Well, we had to get Woody because he's leaving. So you want me to ad-lib all the funny stuff I just said? You want me to do that again for the camera, huh? And they go, well, Pat, yeah, I mean, we had to get Woody. Hey, guess what? Fuck Woody Allen. Fuck Ray Garvey. Fuck this whole piece of shit. I'm not doing it. I go up here and do 20 minutes off the top of my head, and now you're going to turn the camera around and shoot me? Fuck you. He storms out to Randazzo's, and Jackie Martling has to go and calm him down. Fuck you, Jackie. Oh, it was great.
Dude, what happened to those days? They were magic. I mean, I don't want to sound like the bitter old guy sitting on the porch going, "You kids don't know what you missed," but man, it was really something. It was
spontaneous.
It was magic.
I mean, yeah. Look,
it was YouTube, John. I mean, and all of these viral things. That's what killed comedy. I mean, those days are gone, unfortunately.
I think the overexposure of the craft certainly helped. Back in the day, you really had to dig in to want to do it. You couldn't do it because I know people now that say, I want to go up and try it. There was no trying it back then. No. If you were going to get on stage, you better be for real. That was the deal. You better want to be there. There's no trying out.
No, like I said, I mean, I literally had to almost get a beating just to get the audition.
And happy to take it, right?
And happy to take it. But in those days, we were lucky because nothing was saturated. Like you said, there was no YouTube.
Right.
So we were lucky that we lived in a time where if you told people I'm a comedian, they'd be like, oh, a comedian.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Now you say, I'm a comedian. They go, my cousin's a comedian.
Like, yeah. Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, what is he? Some amateur? Yeah. They name him. You're like, Jesus, he's got more followers than I do.
Wow. Well, Colin, I want to ask you about that because the Cellar is a place that I remember seeing you so many times. And there's like a hierarchy there. How important is a place like that to comedy and to comedians? Because when a new guy tries to go and, let's say, sit at the table in the back, he hears about it.
Well, now there's 4 clubs there now, about to be 5. So the Cellar is a group of, there's 3 around the corner too. So it expanded to the point where it's really big. You know what I mean? So there's none of that personal touch of everyone at this table anymore. It's a rotate. You know what I mean? Like those days are over. And all my friends, we're all old, so nobody's hanging out late or with each other. But it's still got the vibe. I mean, it's still the Cellar. But I mean, there's no there's whatever it was 20 years ago. It's not like that anymore.
Dude, even the vibe in the place that we were in. From just my experience. Now, I have not been on stage in about 6 months, mostly because of this friggin' surgery for my shoulder. But when we were in there, I was doing my thing, and I could feel and see like half the crowd was like, yeah, and the other half was like inappropriate. I was getting a lot of like condescending vibes and looks. There were 1 or 2 times where it seemed like 80% of the people were on board. But I'm also noticing like there was a definite split there between attitudes toward comedy. I mean, it wasn't a comedy club, but you know,
Right.
it was formed into, and it wasn't ideal, but still, it
Yeah.
was it
Well,
was a bizarre crowd.
Well, that's comedy. Comedy now. Yeah, I know. Astoria. It's a split of people anyway. You know, like all these neighborhoods, and yeah, there's definitely a lot of different vibes of what people like in comedy. When we were doing it, it was like I said, it was new, and people were just. It was a different world. You know what I mean? Like, so it's a different. You know what I mean? Like.
I don't remember anything other than people wanting to come out and laugh back then.
Right.
They just wanted to have a good time. Kip Addotta once said that a club needs three things. It needs good lighting, good sound, and a paying audience. People that want to be there.
John, a club needs three things, John.
It's true though. If they're not there paying, if they're not there for the event, it's very difficult to get them rolling with it.
You know, that I learned that lesson, and I swear to God, I believe it to this day. What you just said, because one time I did a gig in Jersey, of all places, one of those one-nighters, but they didn't have a cover this time. And I go, I bet this crowd's going to be amazing because they didn't have to pay the cover. And it was the worst night ever.
Right? Yeah.
And when people pay, they value it more, you know?
Right.
Because you're telling them this is worth something. When you give it to them for free, they don't respect it.
They just dismiss it, right? So what was the year that you actually started?
84.
84. And you came you grew up what, in Queens or Brooklyn?
Brooklyn.
So was that, what year was Remote Control when you started doing that?
88.
88.
Nice.
Okay.
See, back in the day, you got working, and really quick, people started getting gigs. It was amazing. They made the transition from clubs into something
They would
else.
come to the clubs and see you and go, oh, wow. Because now, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's harder to be a comedian now because there's a million comedians. So when you do a show, you know, it's all saturated. So it doesn't, even if you do get something, it doesn't mean, like when we were coming up, if somebody had a commercial, that was a big deal. And they'd introduce them to the crowd. This guy's done a commercial. People are like, whoa,
yeah.
Now people can be regulars in the series and not get spots.
Dude,
Well, I thought it was the coolest thing in the 80s, what Saturday Night Live did for comics, because it kind of really put you guys out there. Like when you were in Night at the Roxbury next to Chaz Palminteri. I mean, it was effective because it put you in that light now with these A-list actors, and you became a household name almost overnight.
First of all, Phil, if you're going to say I'm a household name because of that, I'm clicking off right now.
Well, for me, you were, because I followed everything you did because you were from my neighborhood.
But listen to me. What I'm saying is this: if you knew the shitty attitude I had in that movie, I tried to get out of that 10 ways. I have to say one thing. I've had one of the worst attitudes. I mean, the things I didn't turn down. I just had a bad, and even that, I tried to get out of it, and I had to do it, you know, because it was long. But I mean, that's funny. And Night at the Roxbury, to this day, people go, "That was a funny movie." But at the time,
it holds up.
When we did MTV Remote Control, I was like, "This is sellout. What we're doing is
you
great."
were so good in Night at the Roxbury, though. Maybe because you were pissed off, but that was your whole persona.
That's exactly right. I was not acting. I was so I played a disgruntled John. I'm like a disgruntled employee in the movie, and I felt it the whole time.
Well, then how do you explain Grown Ups then? It was the same character.
Well, Grown Ups was a little, but it's the same thing. I was kind of like, all my friends were doing better than me. And think about who's in that movie. Sandler, Chris Rock, Spade, Kevin James.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, once again,
a stretch.
It's not that hard.
Do you remember, and we spoke about this the last time we gigged together, do you remember the first time that you and I actually crossed paths?
Was it Rascals?
Nope. It was at this audition for this pilot called King of the Building. And you and I had heard your name. People said, "Man, have you seen Colin Quinn? You guys would get along. You got to meet." And I had heard your name. I felt like I knew you some way or another. I was trying to I was going, did we work together? I'm not sure. So this was 1986, and you and I were up for the very same part, a TV show called King of the Building. It was about a doorman who worked on Park Avenue, and the whole vibe was he was a guy from Brooklyn. He had all the angles going on. He was a bit of a hustler, and he was the guy who truly ran things and took care of these really dysfunctional elites. And I found the pilot. I know I talked to you about it the last time. I found the pilot, which this, according to YouTube, says never aired. It actually did air once. I don't know which network, but I'm going to play a little bit for you right now.
Good.
Yeah. Here's the nutty music. Bobby Slayton is Eddie. Right,
hello, Elliot.
Hi, Joey. Hector, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Do you know what time it is?
What is that, drunk driving question? You just said 3 o'clock in the morning.
I called you over 5 hours ago. Hector, you're not a licensed plumber. I can't just waltz you in here in broad daylight to fix things.
I know that, Joey. I know that. I appreciate you putting up with me, Joey.
Hello, Elliot.
Hey, what are you doing down here? I told you got to stop walking around like that.
Well, don't I look nice?
Yeah, you look beautiful, Mom. That's the problem. A lot of guys your age, they go crazy when they see flannel.
I brought you some milk and cookies.
Hector, will you get in the basement? Come on, the boiler's all screwed up. There's no water pressure on the upper floors.
You want it, you got it. Hello, Missy Glato. Excuse me.
Now eat your milk and cookies.
And hilarity ensues.
Yeah.
Dude, so there it was. That was typical Hollywood bullshit. You and I up for the same thing. We knew we were close. They brought us in on a Sunday. That was the day. My sister still talks about it. You met my little sister. She was 15, and it was me and you reading for that part. And who do they give it to? Richard Lewis.
Yes.
Bizarre. Go.
Yes. And meanwhile, I remember Lenny Clark coming up to me about him after we, in those days you didn't know you didn't have the part. They wouldn't even tell you. You just figure it out after a while. And I remember Lenny Clark going, "Hey, I ran into him somewhere." He goes, I'm getting that part of the super." So I was like, all right, I guess, he's in the same vein.
Right.
And
Lenny Clark there.
By the time the show comes on, it's Richard Lewis.
It's Richard Lewis. And I think I mentioned this to you that day when the pilot aired. My then manager, Richard Baker, cut out the review of the pilot, and it said literally, Richard Lewis in King of the Building is forced to wear a suit that literally and figuratively does not fit him. And it aired once, and they yanked it.
Of course. And then they blame him or they blame whatever.
Right.
Instead of realizing, well, I mean, God, R.I.P., Kevin Meaney was Kevin Meaney. When I was at Catcher as I saw, I watched him. We watched CAA at that time. Everything was huge. So they get Kevin Meaney. They put all his money. It's nobody ever had a comic where CAA was, and they put this whole thing upon Kevin Meaney, whose personality is a very specific type and hilarious. And they made him Uncle Buck. Because he looked like John Candy, but his personality was completely the opposite of Uncle Buck.
The opposite.
And they destroyed him, and then they blamed him. So they're like, the show didn't work. They had 8 episodes. He made $1 million. And they were like, well, it didn't work. I guess he's not good for shows. The public doesn't want to see him. No, you put him in the totally wrong role.
I was watching the Tonight Show once right before I started doing comedy, and Daniel J. Travante was being interviewed by Carson. And Carson said, "So you're out here now. You're a big shot. You're living in L.A. You got all this great stuff going on." He says, "So what's it like being in show business?" He goes, "Well," he said, "show business is a very concentrated core of very creative people and a much larger extended ring of interferers." I remember going, "What? Like what is that? Like why would you want to work in that?" And there I was a year or two later.
It's funny when you say like those moments where you go, "What does that mean?" I remember reading an interview with Jack Nicholson, who was, an upfront guy. I forget some big interview he did back in the early 80s. And he goes, the one regret, they go, you seem like you have no regrets. And he goes, the one regret I have is I tried to be honest when I'm in interviews. And I tried to be honest and say what was really going on in interviews. He goes, I'll never do that again. And I was like, what does that mean? And then later you go, oh, I know what that means.
I know, yeah. I know now exactly what that means. Yeah. It's like putting blood in the water.
But is that a bowling alley behind Phil? It's driving me crazy. I love it.
It's actually the Big Lebowski. Did you see the Big Lebowski?
Dude, yeah. You had to make it. You should have made him work for it. Come on.
Oh, I can't. It's Colin Quinn, John. He's worked hard enough.
I worked hard enough.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, that's the Big Lebowski back there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of working hard enough, when I saw you around late 90s, I think it was, you and I was working radio in New York, and you and Brewer were coming down, I think it was 6th Avenue. And you came on impromptu, and we had some fun on the air. But I remember you saying to me that you hated the writing gig or trying to contribute over at SNL. And
I hated it.
Yeah, that's what I thought you said, that it was the toughest gig you ever had.
No, I mean, the writing gig was, I've written on a few shows. I wouldn't say it was the toughest gig I've had, but I would say doing Update, I didn't enjoy. I enjoyed the writing gig more. Actually, the first.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, the first couple of, maybe it was the reverse, but the first couple of years there, I loved the writing gig.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I was saying Update wasn't for me,
I was thinking maybe it was the Daniel J. Travante thing again, like, all the interferers with, people coming in and messing with your material.
I'll say one good thing about SNL was with writing, you lived and died by your sketch, even though they do rewrites and you'd have fights, but they were your equals. Or at least, like, there was nobody there who just, except Lorne, but nobody there who could just be like, hey, this is the way it's going to be. Because you would just go, hey, you're not, you know what I mean? Don't pull that, that shit on me. You know what I mean? Like, it was more peers, which was what I liked better about it, I didn't
Brewer had a great story about his audition for SNL to get on. What was yours? Did you have to audition?
Lorne. No, I was there as a writer, so I didn't.
Okay.
What was his audition?
Oh, he told a great story about his audition. We'll save it for when he comes on. But I mean, there were so many good characters there. I mean, Jay Moore at that time, wasn't he? Who was in your class? Well,
our class was Will Ferrell, Sherry O'Terry, Molly Shannon. This David Koechner was there. This is the first year when we were there. This girl Nancy Walls, who married to this day still to Steve Carell, and it's so funny the things you remember. That year, all the Chicago people are going, I can't believe they didn't hire Steve Carell. Steve Carell's the best. And we're all like, who the hell is Steve Carell? You keep mentioning his name. They go, he's the greatest guy, and he's the most talented guy. And it's like, oh, my God, this guy's Steve Carell. We used to make fun like Steve Carell. Daryl Hammond was there with me.
Wow.
I mean, it was an interesting crew. And Jim.
Yeah.
And Tim Meadows was there. And then over the years, a few more people, but this is like.
Was Norm there at the same time that you were there?
Yeah. Norm and Tim Meadows are the only ones from the previous cast. Because remember, they had that big Saturday Night Dead article. It was like the show was almost over and there was a lot of drama. The only ones that remained of performers was Norm and Tim. But Norm was, he had his office. He was just hilarious. I mean, I was just talking about him yesterday with somebody, and I said I didn't understand how much Norm really understood everything in life. Like, he would say these pronouncements, and I was like, he's crazy. He's paranoid. And it was up the lady. What he was so smart.
What were the pronouncements? Give us one. Give us a pronouncement.
He was just talking about. He would just say basically saying people are now trying to judge jokes. Like, he was sort of ahead of the curve.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That kind of stuff. And I was like, what's he talking about? He goes, yeah, people are saying, hey, don't say that funny joke because you might piss off 6 people out of 6 million.
Yeah. I
was like,
a good eye.
And I was so stupid. I was like, no, he's making a mountain out of him. He's talking about one, but he just had a big picture vision,
You know, it's funny. Last night on my feed, up popped Norm doing Letterman, which just had me roaring. It was so pitch perfect. And Alec Baldwin, who I think is an asshole, actually came out and did a spot on De Niro. It was really very good. Who played Paul Schaefer on SNL? He was great. I forget.
Alec Baldwin did great impressions.
He did great impressions. I give him credit.
But Norm's impression, I think it was Mark McKinney did Paul Schaefer.
Okay. Yeah. That was who it was. Yeah.
But let me tell you something. Norm would come out and suddenly, even if you did impressions on the show, you're like, yeah, he's not an impression guy. Then suddenly comes out, does the Letterman. Then he does Clint Eastwood. It's amazing. Then he did, one day he was I never made it on the air. He does William Buckley.
When he did Burt Reynolds, it was great.
Burt Reynolds, of course.
Burt Reynolds was genius.
Yeah.
But if you see his Clint Eastwood, you will cry. It's unbelievable.
I got to look it up now. Stand by one.
Yeah, he was one of those guys. He was a special guy. Just a really special guy.
Yeah, he really was. He was so distinctive. Like there's nobody like him. You can't even think of it,
Here it is. Stand by. Hold on a second. I already just saw one clip of it, and you're right. Stand by. Hold on. This is
brilliant. There are a few guys like Phil Hartman was another one that was just special.
Norm Macdonald as Clint Eastwood. Stand by one. All right.
I'm Dina Eastwood, and I live in Carmel, California. Morgan is my 15-year-old daughter.
God bless America.
I have a stepdaughter named Francesca Ruth. Are you nude?
Yeah.
And I have a great, supportive, artistic husband. I'm married to Clint Eastwood.
Six Oscars, $1 billion at the box office, and I'm in a goddamn reality show.
We're meeting tonight for dinner, diarrhea! Get away!
My wife, real class act. And yes, that was diarrhea.
Tyler Shields is extremely headstrong. I think that's part of the reason he's so appealing to Francesca is that he's such a man.
I'm so in love with him. I've never felt this way before, ever.
Hey, punk. I'm talking to you, punk. Hey, punk. I have to ask you to turn that camera off for a while. Seriously.
Dude, that's fucking brilliant.
He's funny. I never saw that again. That's not from SNL. That was years later. When he was on SNL, he did it, but I guess it didn't go on the air. But he would just show up and write these crazy. By the way, I don't think it ever made it on the air, but this is his biggest character. This guy, Frank Sebastiano, and him wrote. And the character's name he was a private detective, and his name was Dick Blocker, and he was a cock blocker. And his name was Dick Blocker. And he was just, every case he would be on, trying to solve the case, he would be cock blocking.
I love it.
I am so upset that there was no Dirty Work 2 because I used to beg Artie to make a Dirty Work 2 to get together with Norm. It should have happened.
I mean, it should have, but I mean, maybe, they keep raising the money and all that. It's not that simple.
They were so good together. Oh, those now who entertains you? Like when you want to laugh, can you even just sit back and listen to anyone, or is there anyone
I can listen to stand-up comedy when I'm live. Like when we did that gig last week, John comes on, and like you said, the crowd, and his arms in a sling, and he walks on there, takes the sling off, and just the intent and just there's a fighting spirit in him that I'm loving the whole set. because he's not. You could kill him. You could hate. You could kill him. You could do whatever you want, but he's not backing down. And I'm not talking about like I'm not backing down. But he wasn't being like that. I'm not talking about being like, hey, screw you people. Not like that. That's not the energy at all. This is just an open energy when you're watching a real comic, and he was famous for that always. But that kind of stuff I can watch because I'm still amazed by it. You know what I mean? I'm still watching. Here's this room we're wedged in.
It's an alleyway.
It's an alleyway. It's not a comedy room. And to watch people go up and not flinch, it does my heart. It makes me proud to be in the business. You know what I mean?
You know, when we first started,
I love.
When we first started, I remember going in and running into guys like, of course, Rodney and some of the older Catskill guys, Freddie Roman.
Yep.
And of course, Pat Cooper. And I remember we were in our 20s and these guys were probably our age.
That's
and
right.
I thought, you know, look at these old dudes until I saw them get on stage. And the one time I told this to Phil before, the one time I got really humbled was I was working the Improv on a weekend and Bud comes in. And Bud, when he came in, he was either going to point out someone in the audience or bring somebody on stage. So I'm looking over at the stack of equipment and I'm squinting through the light bar and it's Milton Berle.
Oh, geez.
And I'm going to myself, I'm going, Milton Berle. And I'm crushing it. And I'm thinking, this dinosaur can't follow me, right? Well, that dinosaur got on stage and holy shit, he didn't just keep it going. He took it up a notch. And I just could not believe it. I was so blown away. I remember standing off to the side like, I am not worthy. Like, who is this fucking ancient relic? And he was amazing. He was amazing.
I went to it when I lived in LA in like 1991. This agent died from William Morris. I knew his daughter. So I was friends with his daughter, or maybe we're dating, I don't know. But I went to the funeral. And she was a friend of mine. And it was in like Forest Lawn or something. And then Milton Berle was there. But like he knew the guys, so he showed up out of respect. So then the preacher, whoever goes, if anybody would like to say anything. And we're all kind of thinking like we were hoping Milton Berle would say it. And he knew it. So even though he wasn't the guy's closest friend, he knew everybody wanted him to speak at the funeral because he's a celebrity. And he gets up there and he goes, how you doing? You know, just a few words. And, you know, Jack, the agent, was named Jack. Because Jack was a William Morris agent. William Morris, where on Tuesday they tell each other, have a nice weekend. And he did a couple of jokes and got off. But I was like, that's old school. Like he knows people want him to go up. And instead of going, no, I'm not ready. He knew I'm going up. I don't have much to say. I wasn't prepared, but he went up and did it. And I was like, that was Berle did that. Yeah.
I think, John, right around the same time, I had the opportunity to see Don Rickles before he passed do Kimmel, and he could barely stand Colin. I mean, they had to wheel him up. And then once he got on stage, and I think, John, you have a similar story in Vegas when you saw him do a show. Colin, it was a different guy. He just popped up, started walking, and it was Rickles in 78.
Yeah.
You don't know what that's like. Yeah. It's like being struck by lightning when you hit the stage. It's like adrenaline takes over, adrenaline, muscle memory, whatever it is. You hit the stage, and even your worst sets are not as bad as you thought.
No. And I did a benefit a few years ago for this thing, and the Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey were on. And backstage, I almost started crying because these guys, Pete Townsend is like almost earmuff, you know, he can't hear anything. And they're both hunched over. I look over, I'm like, oh my God, these old, I didn't even know it was them at first. And then they bring them on, they walk on the stage and transform, like you said. 3 songs, killed it. And then back to him.
Do you remember, did you do Comedy Tonight back in the day? The
Bill Boggs?
Yes. Okay. Now, I did the studio warm-up. Was I there that night that you did it, that you recorded?
I don't remember. I mean, we're talking about Night Flight or Comedy Tonight?
It was called Comedy Tonight, 84 to 86, I think it was.
I know I did one, yeah.
Okay, well, same. I was there, and they said, go downstairs and meet George Burns. He's coming in. So I go downstairs. They were literally scraping Metro Media off the glass doors and painting Fox. There was a guy there with a paintbrush and some kind of a stick, and he was painting the word Fox on the door. That's when how old it was. And he pulls up, and the limo door swings open. Now I'm 6 foot. As the door opened up, I had my hand on the top of the door. He standing walks out and walked under my arm. That's how short he was. And here comes his manager with 2 styrofoam heads. There's a wig on each one. One wig is I need a haircut, and the other wig is I just got a haircut. And he's walking behind him, and I follow them into the studio. I say, up this way, Mr. Burns, and whatever his manager was. And we get to to his dressing room, and I said, this is your dressing room, and there was some stuff set out for him. And George Burns is acting like a lunatic. He's walking around, and he's touching things. He's going, ooh, what is this? Talcum powder. Oh, they put a fruit thing. Oh, I got a fruit. And I'm looking as I'm talking to the manager, and I'm going, okay, so you're going to be going on the second show. And I'm watching George Burns, and I'm thinking, this guy's out of his mind. As soon as I left the dressing room, I ran to Boggs Baker, and I said, you can't put that man on. And they were like, what? I said, George Burns. I said, he's out of his fucking mind. You can't put him on. And they said, that's George Burns. I said, I don't care who it is. I said, you can't put him on. He's crazy. I said, go look. So Bill ducked into the dressing room for a minute. He comes out and he goes, we can't cancel him. It's George Burns. And I'm here I am going, all right, you'll see, but just watch. Don't forget I told you. They load the show in. And I don't know if you remember the set, but it had this giant garage door that lifted up. And when they brought him around the back, they lifted it up. And when he stepped out, it was like the sun rose. I will never forget it. This energy that he projected out over the audience. He had his suit and tie on. His new hairpiece was in perfect space, ubiquitous cigar, and he destroyed the place effortlessly. And then sat with Boggs and did a little banter and was great on the panel. Out the door, gone. I to this day, it's one of those things that I always have in my mind. Like, I don't know what happened. I don't know what
he's God, was. John. He was God.
He was God. Right. But that's what it is. Like that's what it is when it comes to being a comic and having to be on.
When we did MTV, the remote control, me and Ken Ober. So one episode, we used to make fun of all the 70s sitcoms. So one episode, we got Norman Fell to come on, So Norman Fell's contract says he gets his check in his dressing room before he goes on with a 6-pack of beer. So it's got to be a cold 6-pack of beer. I forget, it was Budweiser, some normal kind of beer, Budweiser or Miller, and then his check, that's got to be there before he goes on. It's in the writer. So his drink is there. We wait. We're right next to his dressing room, all excited. Norman Fell goes in, takes the check, puts it in his pocket, drinks the 6-pack of beer, drinks 2 of his beers. 2 beers, goes out. We do the scene. The scene is, well, Kenny, you've always been a little, the Norman Fell, what he used to do to Jack Tripper.
Mr. Roper, right? Like,
and he goes, well, Kenny, you've always been, and then the director goes, hi, Norman, could you do it a little broader? Because I feel like we don't catch it. And Norman Fell's look at him like, okay. And he goes, well, Kenny, you've always been a little, we get it, cut. He leaves, goes in the dressing room, drinks 1 more of the beers, and just leaves. And we're like, hey, no, Mr. Fell, it's great to meet you. He goes, yeah, nice to meet you. So.
Dude, how long did you do remote control with Ken?
Like 2.5 years.
Did you get the link I sent you about me and Kenny doing mushrooms for the first time?
Oh, yeah.
He was such a good guy. I really miss him. He was such a good hang.
Guy.
Such a good hang.
He was a great hang. Kenny, whenever we do these appearances, Kenny would do like he would do crowd work, like we'd do comedy and stuff. He was just so quick and so off. It was amazing, He was a great guy.
He was great. So what do you got going on now? What's on deck for you?
On deck for me is just gigs. I got a few stand-up gigs I'm doing, and I'm still writing. I write all these movies and TV shows, but none of them gotten made yet. So if you know anybody with anywhere between 6.5 million, which is what I budgeted one of them out for, and the other ones, I could probably get the other ones done for 8 or 9, and I'm being generous.
Bargain. Right.
What's that?
That's a bargain.
I get you, Norman.
Considering the money on the other end, you're right.
Right. Yeah. Come on.
The clip we played at the beginning about the Constitution. I saw you do that before. What's that special from?
That's called Unconstitutional. That was from
2015. I think 2015. Yeah.
I think it was 2013, maybe.
Well, you would know. You wrote it.
Yeah. I think it was 2013 or 2012. It was like 12, 14 years ago. But about, most of my specials are about either New York or the United States as a whole. And but that one was really, I really worked harder on that than anything, because that 4 pages of the Constitution, really thinking it through is very interesting. You know what I mean? It's really, I read all these books. Like, people have written books. I think, like, people took this very seriously in the old days. Pro, con, switch, but they really understood, like, this document, whatever else is in it, it transcends any. I mean, it really created the country more than Declaration of Independence, more than the idea of democracy. That little document, and they fought like crazy. It's an interesting story too,
I believe that document is divinely inspired. Do you agree?
Yes.
Whatever they were tapped into, in my opinion, they were into some otherworldly presence was absolutely communing with them.
I agree. And
because it aged very well. It aged extremely well.
And I have to say, the Connecticut Constitution was not that far. Whoever came up with the Connecticut Constitution, I forget. That was the inspiration. A lot of that stuff was in there. But I feel like it was divinely inspired because it lasted. And honestly, the fact that if I had to bet in 1787, I would have bet 40 years to maximum. That's what I would have thought.
And what was that famous line? Was it from Benjamin Franklin? It's a republic if you can keep it. Was it Franklin that said that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, apparently they came out after the founding fathers got together and decided we were going to go independent and write a constitution, blah, blah. Yeah, we have a republic if you can keep it. And next year will be 250 years if we can keep it. And so far, I mean, listen, we're going through in my opinion, a constitutional challenge right now. And that old saying, the reason we have a Second Amendment is to preserve the First. I'm totally that guy. And I think I don't know if you agree or disagree, but you seem to have a pretty good take. Whatever your takes are, I like listening to them, even if I disagree with them.
Thanks.
I like listening to them. They're very well thought out, and they got a punchline at the end of it. You can't.
As you know, I always tell anyone, they're like, Bo, do you think? And I'm like, it doesn't matter. When I speak my opinion without being funny, I'm sound like everybody else. The only reason I would have value is because I'm trying to make a punchline at the end of it.
Right.
And that's the thing. When I speak my opinion, it's everybody's opinion, or at least whatever. It's a lot of people's opinion. But when I can make a punchline, then I have value. And that's how I look at comedy,
Well, John, I gotta say, for my generation, Colin, thank you. I mean, from Tough Crowd, everything you've done, it's kind of I gotta say it, because my generation, John, he's your contemporary, but for the younger guys like me, Colin was the guy. I mean, remote control. So were you, John. I mean, you may not think so, but you were the guys that we looked up to and we learned comedy from. And I think that's why there's such a big problem. There's not guys like you around every day to show these kids what's really funny. And I mean, you look at Night at the Roxbury, you look at SNL, Tough Crowd, the contributions you made, Colin. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Phil. But, I don't know why you had to slip Night at the Roxbury in there again. You've got
one of my favorite movies of all time. I love it.
You've got a real mental problem.
I know I do. Thank you.
Colin, one of my analogies in regard to what has happened to the comedy scene today is that somehow we have not only handed the mic over to the hecklers, we have given them credibility. Do you agree with that? Like, Pete, there's a person in the audience that has become offended, and we need to stop or at least acknowledge them before we can move on. It feels
it's funny you say that, because I always say the internet has created a heckler's society. So it's interesting you said that. I feel the same way. There's a lot of hecklers that now have this new validity. And
Validity.
it's funny. Great minds think alike.
Huh? You are right. They have, what? We're talking about. You're right. It's given them validity. I remember back in the day, there was I told Phil this, but mid 80s, but probably when we were palling around. And I remember this woman stood up in the middle of a show one night, and she had taken offense to some really cheesy old stupid joke I did. You know, there were 1 million battered women in America last year. You know why? They don't listen.
Right.
She got up in the middle of the set. This is what scared me. She stood up and just was staring into the ceiling and started spewing off battered women statistics. And was like, there were 1 million battered women in America last year. Battered women is actually a disease that covers so many through it. And the crowd was like, the crowd turned on her and went like, get the fuck out, like lunged at her, and they had to escort her out. Yeah. She hung around for about the next 2 weeks. She came in every weekend. Mark Magnuson used to tell me, go around the back door. That crazy woman is here. And guess what? She was an attorney. And back then we laughed. She wanted to sue. We laughed and carried on. Get her out of here. She's nuts. Now they welcome them in and go, oh, what can we do, offended person?
Of
to
course.
Make this better? It's bizarro. I don't know what's happened.
They give them talk shows.
They give them talk shows.
They say, well, you don't have to sue. We'll sue them.
Right. What do you think is going on here?
It's the nature of the internet. That's how it is. It's the nature of the internet. But don't forget that one of the greatest heckle responses of all time was Glenn Hirsch. You ever meet him? Remember him?
Of course. Yeah. No, Glenn.
And he's when a guy would heckle him, he goes, you know, sir, it's people like you that make people like me, people like you.
Colin Quinn, everybody. Colin, I don't want to put your I love you. By the way, I love your email. I'm not going to tell anybody. I forgot you've had that email forever. I forgot when I started putting it in. I got to email Colin, and it popped up. I said, oh my God, I fell down laughing. I also want to are you still doing that YouTube thing? I saw you do it with Chaz Palminteri.
Oh yeah. I'll be playing around with that again, you know.
What was that movie really you were in with Chaz?
It's fun. We just did walk around the old Bronx, his Bronx neighborhood. Oh no, Jack.
I was waiting for that one to kick
All
in.
roads lead back to Roxbury, Phil.
Phil's like one of these trivia dogs on a bone. He just loves to lean into that shit.
Oh, he does, and that's one of those movies. I have to say, it held up a lot better than I did.
I still remember your character's name, Dewey. I mean, I have problems. I have problems.
Can you believe they put this guy in charge of a comedy channel over at Sirius?
I was trying to get Colin a job as soon as we started Raw Dog. I brought you up. I had you meet with John McDermott and everything. But they just wanted people to work for free, John.
But, you know, it's funny you said that because they did. They called me. I think Jack or somebody goes to me when they started. And then my friend goes, I heard you turned down a show. I go, yeah, they offered me no money. I couldn't believe it. I was sitting in there. It's only like 12 years ago. And he goes, Jack, I think it was Jack.
Jack Vaughn. That was after.
Jack Vaughn,
yeah.
You know, Jack, nice guy. And he goes, yeah, I mean, you know, we don't have money. And I go, well, what are we talking about? He goes, no, we don't have money. I go, are you kidding me? You offered me a free show.
Colin, I had
they offered
Paul
me
Mooney,
nothing. Zero.
I had Paul Mooney and Robert Schimmel wrote for the Stern Show when they were moving over to Sirius, if you remember.
Right.
And Tim Sabian was the guy in charge. I don't know if that name's ever. I know John knows that name, but Tim was notorious. Oh yeah, Phil, bring him up. I'll talk to him. Schimmel comes out. He's like, you didn't tell me it was for free. I'm doing all this for free.
I mean,
Schimmel and Mooney, classics, both passed on. God bless. God bless.
Yeah.
God bless. Colin, do you remember when you were hosting Caroline's Comedy Hour and
Yes.
I was doing a spot?
Yes.
Do you remember as we were waiting backstage for the show to start?
I think we should. We wasn't backstage. There was no backstage. We're on the stage, and I go to John. I go, John, see this? I go, we're getting paid. We're doing this thing. We work where you get to be in these exciting environments of these nightclubs. Oh, I mean, this is just, yeah. I mean, isn't this the greatest thing? And John goes, I mean, I would rather have been a cop. I go, I think me too. I mean, I remember, and then when you became a cop, I was like, he's doing it. It's great.
You know, it's funny. I don't think I ever told you this. The first night I ever got recognized in uniform as a cop was on Halloween. it was my first night ever on patrol. I became a cop at the age of 52, and it was a part-time gig. I was still doing stand-up, but it was a great gig for me. I was able to work the road and come back and you know, put on my bat suit, fight a little crime, and then go back out on the road.
Yeah.
But the first night out was Halloween, and that's a traditional release night for this particular academy. And I'm standing in a convenience store with all my brand new gear on, shiny and perfectly pressed, and I'm with my partner, and all these little kids are in their costumes and they're playing around, and I'm joking with the kids. And there's this guy. He's just staring at me, and he's looking at my name tag, and he's looking at me, and I know what's coming. And he goes, Mulrooney? And I went, yeah. He goes, I just saw you last month at the Comedy Works. And I said, oh yeah. I go, that was a good show. And he does another one of these, and he goes, is that a costume? I said, yeah, it's such a great costume. It comes with a car and a partner. So it's really
and a gun, yeah.
And a gun and a real gun. Yeah.
It's great.
Dude, there was some great moments where you would have been, you know, I had guys like you in my ears. I was, you know, having contact with civilians, and I was able to throw out a line that was just able, you know, a great one-liner to flatten people. We had a call one night where this guy was, some guy pulled a knife on his girlfriend and took off running into the woods. I went and found the knife. The sheriff showed up. The troopers showed up. As this is happening, this was so bizarre. Another guy shows up who was also dating her, and then we had to stand him down. And then a third guy shows up who claims he was actually the father of it, right? So he goes, he's standing there, and everyone's doing this back and forth, and I'm standing keeping this guy quiet as they're keeping the guy over there quiet. And he's like, what? One guy ran off to the woods. He goes, and now this motherfucker's over here, and he's did it. And what? And I turned to him and I went, bro, I know it's not a good time, but I'm banging her too. And all the troopers and the sheriffs, they all covered their cameras, and I just said, no. That was a gem. I said, you're not flattening that one, bro. That's a, and they were like, no, you can't. I said, yeah, I can say it. Relax, because I really don't.
Did the guy laugh?
He did laugh. He cracked up, and everybody, when they saw him crack, yeah. That's the thing with being a comic. You know when you can lean in.
That's right. That's right.
And you know when you can't. There's only in your career, there's only a couple of times where you've leaned in and it backfired. Am I correct? Right. Okay.
Yeah.
What was the most for you, the most infamous, where you leaned in and it blew up in your face?
Well, I mean, early on was when I did that gig in North Tonawanda, and then I was following Sky Sands, who killed.
Sky Sands.
He killed. And I go on, and it was like the whole town was there, but I was only doing it for a couple of years. And then I started insulting that because they started booming. And I'm like, oh, shut up. You people don't know what that. And next thing you know, they literally have to hide me under the stage, sneak me in the car. Guys are walking around with bats because they had some event, and they're walking around with bats. Where is that guy? And the guy said, no, he left. I'm right under there. They're trying to kill me. And that was like a big one. And I remember the booker called me and yelled at me 2 days later, and I yelled back at him. When you're new to comedy, you just can't believe. I'm like, how dare you do? I'm yelling at him. Meanwhile, I probably lost him the gig.
North Tonawanda, Sky Sands.
Yeah, right outside of Buffalo, tough town.
Where do you think, I'm just curious, because I believe we're in an inflection point in comedy, in the world, in everything. And I know this is stuff that is like your meat and potatoes when you're doing stand-up.
Yeah.
and you make it funny. You make it, make people ponder and you make them laugh, which is
the job is to laugh. Yeah.
There's only a handful of guys that could do that. Carlin could do it.
Yeah.
Richard was able to do it. Where do you think this is?
Excuse me. Do you want Phil up your ass? Phil, tell him who he's leaving out.
Who is he leaving out?
Geraldo, you said at the beginning.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, come on. I was thinking Carlin, I was thinking Schimmel, and then Geraldo too.
Before you answer, I got to tell you a quick Carlin story. Did you ever work with Mick Lazinski?
Yeah, go ahead.
Did you know Mick Lazinski?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So Mick was opening for Carlin fairly regularly.
Wow.
And it was someplace here in New York. It was a theater. I can't remember. And Mick said, hey, come on down. I'm opening for Carlin. So we go into the dressing room, just me, Carlin, and Mick, and we're sitting talking, shooting the shit, talking about comedy. And Carlin made a point of pointing out this woman in the front row who was morbidly obese by 60 pounds easily, maybe more. And he just happened to mention her, not like definitively, but just brought her up in the course of conversation. And then he said something about his opening line, and I didn't immediately connect the two dots. But Carlin goes out, and this was just for us. And he goes, oh, my God. He goes, congratulations. When are you expecting? And she goes, I'm not pregnant. And he goes, you fat pig. And it was one of those only someone like Carlin could have gotten away. I mean, she's front row. She probably paid $200 for that seat.
That's great.
And she loved that Carlin pointed out that she was morbidly obese in a joke that was really designed for us sitting in the back of the.
I mean, how funny. That was like, well, look, Rickles, who but Rickles, and many guys tried to fight him, I'm sure, would be like, is that the wife, sir? And then he go, no, I'm just kidding. She's lovely.
And even his old school stuff. When I saw him right before he died in Vegas, I was working the Laugh Factory, and I caught him. And he goes, this guy sitting up front. He goes, hello, sir. How are you? He goes, what are you, Chinese or Japanese? He goes, oh, Japanese. Like there's a difference. He goes,
right.
He goes, so you're Japanese, huh? He goes, I think I shot your uncle out of a tree. And it's just all of this classic old stuff that was so brilliantly Rickles.
Yeah.
That, you could just see today, similar to half the faces in our last gig that looked like they bit into a lemon-filled turd when they didn't like a joke. Instead of just like passing and waiting for the next joke they like, had to give you the. Do you remember? I don't remember getting that shit like went back in the day. If they didn't like a joke, they would just wait, like, pause a minute.
I think
like
John just froze.
Yeah.
Oh, Colin, you just froze too. Oh no.
Oh no.
We can we got
okay, there we go.
We got you.
No, there's a few guys like that today, though. The modern day version, I would say, would probably be like an Attell, right? Who could get away with that stuff, who's just like sharp as a knife.
I mean, Attell's amazing. He's like a virtual.
I love Attell. He's so funny.
Great.
Did you see that special he did where he handed out phones to the people in the audience and used their cutaways to get the
Yes.
That was so good, man. That was so brilliant.
Amazing.
The way he did that. One or two old war stories before we go. I don't think I ever told Phil this. Comedy Store, maybe it was 95, Colin, me, you, and Jimmy. Excuse me. Out of line, Jimmy, 95, 96. Me, him, Labriola. The original room is packed, sitting in the back. I know Dr. Dre was one of them. One of the rappers that was sitting there. I don't know if it was Snoop. I don't know who else was with him.
No, because I think this was before they were together. So it must have been him and his crew,
It was all right. It was his crew, but I know Dre was sitting in the back, and they were drinking those really tall, fruity, like a pink lady and all of these weird fruity drinks. And they were tiny little drink tables at the store, and they weren't very stable. And Jimmy walked by and bumped into him, and these giant glasses tumbled over and just spilled everywhere. And they jumped up and they were like, "Oh wow, what's that?" And Jimmy's, "Hey, sorry, well, hey, sorry, guys, say sorry. I didn't say I bumped it by accident. They go, "Watch out, clumsy ass motherfucker!" And Jimmy goes, "Hey, All right, relax, everybody. I said, watch the fuck out. He goes, I said, I'm sorry. Let it go. One thing led to another. And this was in the middle of a show. It erupted into a brawl. And it spilled out. It was me, Colin, and Jimmy squaring off as they're coming out the door. And Colin went, fuck this. And he ran to his Ford Bronco. Ford Bronco, and got his little 38 Smith & Wesson Spurless. Pulled it out. All right, here we go. Ready to go. And just as things looked like they were about to just go ballistic, into the driveway of the Comedy Store pulls an LA Sheriff's Department marked vehicle. And I remember it clipped somebody as it was coming in, and the guy rolled over the hood of the car, and it took everyone's attention away for a second. And as it did, we all went, that's our cue, and boom, and we bolted.
Yeah. They had a whole crew with them.
They had a whole crew with them.
Well, you had Mitzi.
We had
Mitzi.
Yeah.
That was funny. And then
those were Fat Tuesday, she used to call them. Wasn't it Fat Tuesday? Was that it?
I think it was Fat Tuesday. And then the other one was the, are you going to tell the other one was the, me and you with your ex?
Oh, remember I mentioned this to you, Phil. Kim. I was dating Kim. She lived on Banner Avenue in LA, and I forget how, but I don't know how. But I recruited Colin for this. A homeless guy had set up camp in front of her house, and he was not leaving. I kept going out. I kept saying to him, dude.
And he was kind of threatening. Yeah, he was like a threatening guy. Yeah.
Yes, he was doing things that were, people were freaking out. He was giving him a problem going in. And me and Colin approached him, and we each had a tire iron in our hand. And we were like, we're going to say this as nice as possible.
Yeah.
Vacate the premises. And I will say he packed up. I don't know what was going through our head back then, Colin. Can you believe that?
Well, we weren't leaving until he knew we weren't going to leave without.
That was the other thing too. Is like back then we kind of knew we were ready to take that step, which was, that's what it is like doing comedy too, though, is like that.
I know. It is like that. It is like that. And again, there were no cameras around in those days.
There's the other thing. You could get away with stuff. You could do things. I don't even want to say get away with, because that sounds like we're taking something. You could do things with initiative and some kind of inspiration, and not have someone come back to you two or 3 days later with some kind of video or audio record.
Right. You could use common sense with and it was like,
yeah, you didn't have everybody second guessing what you were doing.
That's right.
Yeah. Wow. Well, go ahead.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, Colin, great talking to you.
Same here. Bill, great to meet you.
Great seeing you again.
And I have to tell my other goodbye story. Was John, I don't think you were there. Jimmy and we went bowling at that valley by Jerry's Deli, that bowling alley.
Oh, yeah.
Pins, yeah.
So my first game I bowled in 98. He tells the lane, the announcer's going, bowl aisle lane 6, 98. And then 2 games later, and I want Jimmy's my witness if you ever talk to him again, 248 I bowled.
Oh, all right. Is that good? I don't even know. I don't.
That's really good. Almost a perfect score.
Colin Quinn, everybody. Colin, you don't have a website, do you? You don't do a website, do you?
Nah, I mean, they go to colinquinn.com, yeah.
Fuck that. All right. Anything coming up that you want to plug?
Nah.
Nah.
Love you,
Colin Quinn, everybody. All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.